Are you still buying gas, groceries, and fast food without getting cash back? Why are you doing that? You could be getting cash back on all of these things. And not like, here's some credits to use at this store again and some points. This is cash. This is money on your phone that you can then deposit straight into your PayPal and then put that into your bank account. Over the last 2 years, I have earned $299.39 on Upside. Now, they have cashback offers at all kinds of places. Circle K, Lion's Choice, local random restaurants, Papa Murphy's, Phillips 66, Huck's, all kinds of places now. You can get cash back just for shopping there. All you have to do is give them the last 4 digits of your card, and then they just make sure that you use those same cards at these places and give you cash back on the app. When you go to get the app, use the invite code Janice3538. That's JANICE 3538 to get an automatic 15 cents back per gallon on your first transaction using the app. This year, I'm using the money that we save up for Christmas. It's May, and I've only used it a couple of times on things other than gas, and I already have almost $60 saved up for Christmas for the kids this year. I'm hoping to have about $200 saved up, which doesn't sound far-fetched, especially because now they're offering it at over 50 different local restaurants and 50 different nationwide companies. So like I said, get the app, Upside. That's UPSIDE, and use the invite code Janice3538 to get 15 cents per gallon back on your first transaction. Upside doesn't share any of your personal information with your referral network, so you don't have to worry about like your friends who you refer to the app knowing everything you do and everywhere you shop. Same with people who you are referred from, so don't worry. No one's going to know all the things that you buy.
You dumb fucking bitch!
Bitch.
Bitch!
You bitch! The nigger bitch!
Heinous bitch is the
Fucking bitch.
Bitch.
You're a bitch!
The bitch.
Hi, it's me. I'm here again with Hi Bitch, Bye Bitch. It's a podcast where some dumb bitch gets high and talks about some shit. I'm like very yucked right now, so this is going to be quick and dirty. This week, I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite cults and high control groups. My week was busy and sad because of the shit that happened in Nashville and the shit that continues to happen to my trans siblings and everyone else except for cishet white men. The interesting thing that happened this week was I became a notary public, and I'm getting sworn in tomorrow after I go vote in the local election. My musical feature this week is Moxie the Band. I found them randomly scrolling on my FYP, which never happens. Usually I have to go fucking looking for a musical feature because nobody wants to give me suggestions. So, yeah. Anyway, but it is Moxie the Band, and the song is called The Feeling of Letting Go. It is their NPR Tiny Desk contest submission for this year. It's really good. I just, like I said, found them scrolling. They only have like 400 followers on TikTok, so go follow them after this.
You don't wanna fall back in love. I already heard that before. If you let me walk out that door, it's just what you want. The feeling of letting go. Hey, it's just what you want. The feeling of letting go.
So I will have links to their TikTok, their Instagram, and their Spotify in the show notes. And like I said last week, I'm going to start featuring a small business, and it's mostly going to be my friends. Unless you know somebody who has a small business who you want me to feature them, I will. This week it is my friend Hannah, who owns Handmade Resin Boutique. I also make resin, but like that fixation fell off a while ago, so I kind of stopped doing it for a while, for the most part. 100% don't really do it anymore. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, Hannah does it, and she's adorable. So I actually grabbed one of her TikToks where she's talking, and you can just hear. She's fucking cute, and I love her. And I have a little car hanger doodle thingy from her. It's a By Pride one. It's fucking cute, and it's glittery, and I love it. Here's Hannah.
I found these beautiful flowers on clearance, so I had to snag them, but then I realized they were dyed, and I've never preserved dyed flowers before, so let's see how well they do in the silica.
I didn't want to dig too deep and like get a really long video, but I just figured it'd be cute to feature her voice on here. Hi Hannah, I love you. I also forgot I got my knuckles and my face tattoos touched up this week, so that was another exciting thing. Everyone's favorite time. It's time for a social. Smoke it if you got it, and if you don't, why the fuck are you here? Cheers. All right, so like I said, this is going to be about my favorite cults and high control groups. And when I say favorite, I don't mean like, I love cults. I mean like it's a special interest of mine, so I like to learn a lot about them. So like that's what I'm going to talk about. First of all, a cult is a system of religious veneration or devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. It's a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister, and usually a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing, like the cult of personality surrounding some leaders. I like to follow the BITE model, which was coined by Stephen Hassan, and it stands for Behavioral, Information, Thought, and Emotional Control. And the BITE model is used to describe the specific methods that cults use to recruit and maintain control over people. Destructive mind control can be determined when the overall effect of these four components promotes dependency and obedience to some leader or cause. It is not necessary for every single item on the list to be present for it to be considered a cult. And like many techniques, it is not inherently good or evil. If mind control techniques are used to empower an individual to have more choice and authority over their life, it remains within themselves. The effects can be beneficial if the person is given self-autonomy to use the tools with which they are given. Like benevolent mind control can be used to help people quit smoking without affecting any other behavior. Mind control becomes destructive when it undermines a person's ability to think and act independently. This is future Janice jumping in to say that it's 9:30 now and I'm not going to edit this anymore. So if I fuck up talking, it's because I'm having a bad day. So I love you. Thank you. Bye. Sorry. If I don't edit it out, it's going to be a weird pause because one of the kids had to go to the bathroom. So I had to pause and then come back. So the first group I'm going to talk about is like one of the most well-known ones. That's why these are going to be very vague glaze overs, basically. I'm not doing deep dives on these. I could go for hours on each one of these groups, but we're just doing vague glaze overs because I don't have the mental fortitude to put together a charismatic episode this week. Sorry. First is going to be the Manson family. Known as the family within the group led by Charles Manson in California between the 1960s and 1970s, made up about 100 members, primarily women who were attracted to Manson's alternative hippie lifestyle, often using LSD and Benzedrine, and most were drawn to the communal living aspect and were then radicalized by Manson. After his release from prison in 1967, he began to gain followers in San Francisco. Then Manson used the mostly abandoned Spawn movie ranch as his home for most of 1968 and 69. The owner allowed him and his followers to live there rent-free in exchange for physical labor. He convinced his followers that he was an incarnation of Jesus Christ and that they were on the brink of catastrophic race war. In 1969, Susan Atkins, Tex Watson, and Patricia Krenwinkel entered the home of Hollywood actress Sharon Tate and murdered her and 4 others. Linda Caspian was also present but did not take part. Members of the Manson family also committed somewhere around 20 murders, various assaults, petty crimes, theft, and street vandalism. Manson may have borrowed some of his philosophy from the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Its members believed that Satan would become reconciled to Jesus and that they would come together at the end of the world to judge humanity. According to producer Gary Stromberg, Manson had a dynamic personality and he was able to read a person's emotional weaknesses and manipulate them. Manson tried to manipulate Danny DiCarlo, the treasurer of the Straight Satan's motorcycle club, by granting him access to the family's women. And he convinced DiCarlo that his large penis helped keep the women in the group. He also became involved with Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys and eventually moved into his Pacific Palisades home with around 20 of his female followers, where Wilson paid for all of their expenses, totaling around $100,000, including about $20,000 in medical costs for gonorrhea. They all had gonorrhea, and he paid for everyone to not have gonorrhea anymore so that they could all fuck each other. Wilson and Manson treated the women like servants and sex slaves, and Wilson paid for and arranged studio time for Manson to record music and introduce him to many industry insiders, that which led to the murder of the 4 people, including Sharon Tate, because that's how he got in with all those people. That's how he was able to just walk up into their home and murder them, basically, was because one of their friends was walking out and he was like, "Oh no, I'm friends with," and then he literally just said some random person's name, and dude was like, "Yeah, totally, come on," and let him in there, and then they, yeah. Next group, Rajneesh Puram. If you've never heard of it, go look it up. There's a really dope documentary out about it right now, and it's told by the people who lived in the town right next to this area. So Rajneesh Puram was a religious intentional community in the Northwest United States, located in Wasco County, Oregon. I didn't want to say that wrong and accidentally saying Waco. Just didn't want to say it wrong. It was incorporated as a city between 1981 and 1988. Its population consisted entirely of Rajneeshis, which is what they called themselves, followers of the spiritual teacher Rajneesh, later known as Osho. And citizens and leaders were responsible for launching the 1984 Rajneeshi bioterror attacks, as well as the planned 1985 Rajneeshi assassination plot, in which they conspired to assassinate Charles Turner, the United States Attorney for the District of Oregon. Tensions with the public and threatened punitive action by Indian authorities originally motivated the founders and leaders of the Rajneeshi movement, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh and Ma Anand Sheela, to leave India and begin a new religious settlement in the United States. Rajneesh Puram was planned from the beginning as a home for Rajneesh's followers in the United States, most of whom were told to sell all of their belongings before moving there, and the decision to register as a town was made primarily so that Rajneesh could govern over his followers without attracting attention from authorities. Rajneesh Puram was on the site of a 64,281 acre Central Oregon property. It's about 100 square miles. It was known as Big Muddy Ranch near Antelope, which was purchased by Sheila's husband, John Shelfer, in 1981 for $5.75 million, about $17.1 million today. Within a year of arriving, the commune's leaders had become embroiled in a series of legal battles with their neighbors, primarily over the land's use. They had initially stated that they were planning to create a small agricultural community. Their land was being zoned for agricultural use, but it was soon apparent that they wanted to establish a full-blown infrastructure in town with every service you could think of. Within 3 years, the once empty plot now had its own sewage treatment center, fire and police departments, schools, restaurant, malls, and townhomes, and now claimed to house around 7,000 people, but it is believed after follow-up visits that the number was vastly underreported, as they found hidden beds, compartments. There were lots of underground bunkers and stuff going on. Various legal conflicts, primarily over land use, escalated to bitter hostility between the commune and the local residents. The commune was subject to sustained and coordinated pressures from various coalitions of Oregon residents over the length of its existence. The nearest town only had about 60 residents, but those residents fought super hard for them not to be swallowed up by the commune, because the people in the commune were voting to incorporate the town right next to them. So they voted to disincorporate themselves, but the commune had so many citizens that they were able to vote and then incorporate the small town. By June of 1983, the bombing of Hotel Rajneesh, a Rajneeshi-owned hotel in Portland, was done by the Islamist militant group Jamaat-ul-Fuqra, which further heightened tensions. The display of semi-automatic weapons acquired by the Rajneesh Puram Peace Force created an image of imminent violence, and rumors arose that the National Guard was being called in to arrest Rajneesh, and at the same time, the commune was embroiled in a range of legal disputes. Oregon Attorney General David B. Frohnmeyer is maintaining that the city was essentially an arm of a religious organization and that its incorporation violated the principle of separation of church and state, because they were basically trying to make a religious state. That's what he was saying. 1,000 Friends of Oregon claimed that the city violated state land use, and in 1983 a lawsuit was filed by the state of Oregon to invalidate the city's incorporation. Many attempts were made to expand the city further, but were legally blocked, prompting followers to attempt to build in nearby Antelope, which was briefly named Rajneesh. But when sufficient numbers of Rajneeshis registered to vote there, they won the referendum on the subject. So for a while, it was briefly named Rajneesh instead of Antelope. So when his second in command and scapegoat left the commune in 1985, all hell broke loose. The week after, her name was Sheila. The week after Sheila left, Rajneesh convened a press conference and publicly accused her and her team of having committed crimes within and outside of the community. The subsequent criminal investigation, the largest in Oregon history, confirmed that a secretive group within the community had, unbeknownst to both government officials and nearly all Rajneeshpuram residents, engaged in a variety of criminal activities, including the attempted murder of Rajneesh's physician, wiretapping and bugging within the commune and within Rajneesh's home, poisoning of 2 public officials, and arson. In 1984, Sheila Silverman coordinated an attack alongside Rajneeshpuram citizens to infect the salad bars of at least 10 restaurants in the county seat of Wasco County with salmonella in an attempt to incapacitate the voting population of the city so that their candidate would win the 1984 Wasco County elections. So 750 people got sick, including several Wasco County public officials, but 45 people were hospitalized. No one died. But this incident is still regarded as the single largest biological warfare attack in United States history. And it was done by a religious group so that they could ensure that their candidate would win over somebody else. The fuck? So local residents, suspecting that the Rajneeshpuram were to be involved in the poisonings, they turned out in droves on election day to prevent them from winning any county positions. They were all sick as fuck, like puking their brains out, and they still showed up to go vote to make sure that they wouldn't win. The Rajneeshis eventually withdrew their candidate from the 1984 ballot, and they rendered their plot completely unsuccessful as they pulled their candidate. So they literally got charged with bioterror for no reason because they ended up pulling their candidate anyway. Sheila was extradited from West Germany and was imprisoned for attempted murder, assault, wiretapping, arson, immigration fraud, and her role in the bioterror attack. During the next few years, the movement also came under investigation for multiple other felonies, including arson. On January 14th, 1985, the Wasco County Planning Department office, which held the files on long-running disputes involving the Rajneeshis, was set on fire. The fire extensively damaged the office and destroyed 1/3 to 1/2 of the county's files. They set fire to the city planning, or the county planning department office. They have attempted murder. Several commune members plotted to kill Charles H. Turner, who was the U.S. state attorney in Portland, and several other persons considered to be Rajneesh's enemies. In 1985, the Rajneeshi assassination plot, others were on the hit list, including Dave Frommeyer, the Oregon Attorney General, who first started to publicly dispute the Rajneeshi activities. So, like, they had a whole hit list of public officials that they were going to take out. They were charged with immigration fraud by originally traveling to the United States, claiming that he was there on medical reasons. Rajneesh never sought medical treatment during his residence and later admitted to the counts of immigration fraud. So he actually got charged and admitted with immigration fraud. They had voting fraud. The Rajneeshpuram community attempted to sway local elections in their favor in a variety of methods, including the Share a Home program, in which they transported thousands of homeless people to Rajneeshpuram and attempted to register them to vote to inflate the constituency of voters for the group's candidates. The Wasco County Clerk countered this attempt by enforcing a regulation that required all new voters to submit their qualifications when registering to vote. And if you look up the documentary on them, I think it's actually a docu-series. They'll show, they have video evidence of all of this. Like, there's videos of all of these things happening because this was in the 80s. It wasn't like, a long ass fucking time ago. The news came out, the local people were recording it because it looked like it was weird. It was like the people going to Israel. It was all these people in these white robes just randomly showed up to their town. And then 3 years later, they had a full-blown city that they had built. And then they were bussing in. Like, not like, a car with 2 or 3. They had buses with like 20 to 30 homeless men from random cities in the Pacific Northwest that they would just go and get and bus them in. And then after all this was said and done, they literally just up and left all of these displaced people just in this town in the middle of Oregon with no resources and nowhere to go and no one to take care of them. And so then the town got trashed. The town of Antelope got trashed. It was horrible. It was so bad. You got to go watch the documentary. They were charged with currency and drug smuggling. The criminal activities had, according to the Office of the Attorney General, begun in the spring of 1984, 3 years after the establishment of the commune. Rajneesh himself was accused of immigration violations to which he entered an Alford plea. As part of his plea bargain, he agreed to leave the United States and eventually return to Pune, India. His followers left Oregon shortly afterwards. The increasing ability and capacity of local and state regulators to actively limit the development of Rajneeshpuram this way was one of the major factors that led to the sudden collapse of the commune in September and October of 1985. So, they had to fight. They had to fight it so hard because they had, more than 7,000 people in this tiny little town, and they had established themselves as a little city, but they were trying to become basically a religious state so that he could have complete control over everybody within that, and then also that lady Sheila was going to have complete control over everybody. You gotta watch the documentary. It's kind of insanity. All right, next one is a doozy, and we're going to give lots of trigger warnings, okay? So many trigger warnings because we're talking about Warren Jeffs. Talking about the FLDS. Talking about Warren Jeffs. So, please be ready. This is my warning. If you want to skip forward, it's a long one. Because we're going to talk about all the bad shit he did. Because he doesn't deserve to have any good light shed on him. And we will forever, ever talk about how he's a piece of shit. So Warren Jeffs is an American religious leader who has been convicted of several sex crimes and 2 assisted sex crimes involving children. He is the president of the FLDS, a polygamous denomination of the Latter-day Saint movement. In 2011, he was convicted of 2 felony counts of child sexual assault, for which he is serving a life sentence plus 20 years. Yay! In 2006, Jeffs was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for his flight from the charges that he had arranged illegal marriages between his adult male followers and underage girls in Utah. In 2007, Arizona charged him with 8 additional counts in 2 separate cases, including incest and sexual conduct with minors. In September 2007, Jeffs was convicted of 2 counts of rape as an accomplice, for which he was sentenced to imprisonment for 10 years to life in Utah State Prison. This conviction was overturned by the Utah Supreme Court in 2010 due to flawed jury instructions. Jeffs was extradited to Texas, where he was found guilty of sexual assault of a minor for raping a 15-year-old he had married, quote-unquote, I'm going to say the quote-unquote there, aggravated sexual assault against a child for raping a 12-year-old he had, quote-unquote, married, for which he was sentenced to life in prison plus 20 years and fined $10,000. Jeffs is incarcerated at the Lewis C. Powledge unit of the TDCJ near Palestine, Texas. His father, Roland Jeffs, became the president of the FLDS in 1986 and had 19 or 20 wives and approximately 60 children. Former church members claim that Warren himself had 87 wives. Warren grew up outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, and for more than 20 years served as the principal of Alta Academy, an FLDS private school at the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Jeffs became principal in 1976, the year he turned 21, and he was known for being a stickler for the rules and for discipline. Prior to his father's death in 2002, Jeffs held the position of counselor to the church leader. Jeffs became Ruland's successor with his official title in the FLDS church becoming president and prophet, seer, and revelator, as well as president of the priesthood. The latter concerned being head of the organization of all adult male church members who were deemed worthy to hold the priesthood, a tradition carried on in the Latter-day Saint movement. Following Ruland's death, Jeffs told the high-ranking FLDS officials, "I won't say much, but I will say this, hands off my father's wives." When addressing his father's widows, he said, "You women will live as if father is still alive and in the next room." Within a week, he had married all but 2 of his father's wives. One refused to marry Jeffs and was subsequently prohibited from ever marrying again, while the other, Rebecca Wall, fled the FLDS compound. Naomi Jessup, one of the first of Ruland's former wives to marry Jeffs, subsequently became his favorite wife and confidant. As the sole individual in the FLDS church with the authority to perform marriages, Jeffs was responsible for assigning wives to husbands. He also had the authority to discipline male church members by reassigning their wives, children, and homes to another man. He would literally just kick them out of their house and then like bring some other guy in and like, here's your family. Oh my God. Until courts in Utah intervened, Jeffs controlled almost all of the land in Colorado City, Arizona, and Hilldale, Utah, which was part of a church trust called the United Effort Plan, or UEP. The land had been estimated to be worth over $100 million. All UEP assets were put in custody of the Utah court system pending further litigation. As the result of a November 2012 court decision, much of the UEP land has been sold to those who live on it. In 2004, Jeffs expelled a group of 20 men from the Short Creek community, including the mayor, and reassigned their wives and children to other men in the community. Jeffs, like his predecessors, continued the standard FLDS and Mormon fundamentalist tenet that faithful men must follow what is known as the doctrine of plural marriage in order to attain exaltation into the afterlife. Jeffs specifically taught that a devoted church member is expected to have at least 3 wives in order to get into heaven, and the more wives a man has, the closer he is to heaven. Like, pretty much all of us know that, though, about plural marriages. Before his 2006 arrest, Jeffs had been last seen on January 5, 2005, near El Dorado, Texas, at the dedication ceremony of the foundation of a large FLDS temple on the YFZ Ranch. The ranch came into the public eye on April 7, 2008, when Texas authorities conducted a raid and took legal custody of 416 children in response to a March 31st phone call alleging physical and sexual abuse on the ranch. The caller claimed to be a 16-year-old married to a 50-year-old man and stated that she had given birth to his child a year prior. Residents, however, told authorities that there was in fact no such girl, and the calls were ultimately traced to 33-year-old Rosita Swinton, totally unconnected to the FLDS church and known for repeated instances of filing false reports. Nevertheless, Texas authorities continued to investigate whether Swinton's claims were a hoax. The women and children who were suspected of being minors were returned after Texas courts established that the state had not presented sufficient evidence of abuse to have removed them. On June 10, 2006, Arizona Attorney General Terry Goddard told the Desert News that he had heard from several sources that Jeffs had returned to Arizona and that he had performed several marriage ceremonies in a mobile home that was being used as a wedding chapel. On March 27th of 2007, the Deseret, I think it's Deseret. It's hard to tell with this. It looks like Deseret. We're going to say Deseret, okay? I said it wrong before. Oops. The Deseret News reported that Jeffs had renounced his role as prophet of the FLDS church in a conversation with his brother Nephi. Nephi quoted him as saying that he was the greatest of all sinners and that God had never called him to be a prophet. Jeffs presented a handwritten note to the judge at the end of the trial on March 27th saying that he was not a prophet of the FLDS church. On November 7th, the Washington County, Utah Attorney's Office released video of jailhouse conversations between Nephi and Jeffs, in which Jeffs renounced his priesthood, claims that God had told him that if he had revealed that he was not the rightful prophet and he was a wicked man, he would still gain a place in the celestial kingdom. Jeffs also admits to what he calls immoral actions with a sister and a daughter when he was 20 years old. Other records show that while incarcerated, Jeffs tried to commit suicide by banging his head against the walls and trying to hang himself. Well, shucks. Jeffs formally resigned as president of the FLDS Church effective November 20th, 2007. In an email to the Deseret News, Jeffs' attorneys made the following statements. Mr. Jeffs has asked that the following statement be released to the media and to the members of the Fundamentalist Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. God, why can't they just say FLDS? Why do you have to have such a fucking long name? Mr. Jeffs resigned as president of the corporation of the president of the Fundamentalist Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Incorporated. That is fucking dumb. I'm just taking a second to just soak in how stupid that sounds. The statement did not address his ecclesiastical position as prophet of the FLDS Church, and many in the FLDS community still regard him as the prophet and their current leader. There are also reports that Jeffs admitted his position of prophet in the FLDS Church was a usurpation in a conversation to his brother and declared that Brother William E. Jessup has been the prophet since my father's passing, though Jeffs' attorneys have claimed he misspoke. In early 2011, Jeffs retook legal control of the denomination. On August 2000, On August 28, 2006, around 9 p.m., Jeffs was pulled over on Interstate 15 in Clark County, Nevada by highway trooper Eddie Dutchover because the temporary license plates on his red 2007 Cadillac Escalade were not visible. One of Jeff's wives, Naomi Jessup, and his brother Isaac were with him. Jeffs possessed 4 computers, 16 cell phones, disguises, including 3 wigs and 12 pairs of sunglasses, and more than $55,000 in cash. Jeff's wife and brother were questioned and released. In a Nevada court hearing on August 31st, Jeffs waived extradition and agreed to return to Utah to face 2 first-degree felony charges of accomplice rape. Each charge carries an indeterminate penalty of 5 years to life in prison. Arizona prosecutors were next in line to try Jeffs. He was held in the Washington County Jail pending an April 23rd, 2007 trial on 2 counts of rape, as an accomplice for his role in arranging the marriage between Alyssa Wall and her first cousin. Jeffs was believed to be leading his group from jail, and a Utah State Board has expressed dissatisfaction in dealing with Hilldale police, believing that many members of the force had ties to Jeffs, so therefore did not cooperate. In May and July 2007, Jeffs was indicted in Arizona on 8 counts, including sexual misconduct with a minor and incest. Jeff's trial began on September 11, 2007, in St. George, Utah, with Judge James L. Shumate presiding. Jeffs was housed in Utah's Purgatory Correctional Facility in solitary confinement for the duration. At the culmination of the trial on September 25th, Jeffs was found guilty on 2 counts of being an accomplice to rape. He was sentenced to prison for 10 years to life and began serving his sentence at the Utah State Prison. On January 27, 2010, the Utah Supreme Court, citing deficient jury instructions, reversed Jeff's convictions and ordered a new trial. The court found that the trial judge should have told the jury that Jeffs could not be convicted unless he intended for Alyssa's husband to engage in non-consensual sex with her. Alyssa subsequently wrote an autobiography on her experiences in the FLDS church with Jeffs entitled Stolen Innocence. The book was co-authored with former New York Times journalist Lisa Pulitzer. Jeffs was also scheduled to be tried in Arizona. He had entered a not guilty plea on February 27, 2008, to sex charges stemming from the arranged marriages of 3 teenage girls to older men. He was transported to the Mojave County Jail to await trial. On June 9, 2010, a state judge, at the request of the Mojave County prosecutor Matt Smith, dismissed all charges with prejudice. Smith said that the Arizona victims no longer wanted to testify and that Jeffs had spent almost 2 years in jail awaiting trial, more than he would have received had he been convicted. Combined with the pending charges against Jeffs in Texas, Smith concluded that it would be impractical and unnecessary to try Jeffs in Arizona. Jeffs was then returned to Utah. At the time of his appeal of the 2007 conviction was still pending. On August 9, 2011, Jeffs was convicted in Texas on 2 counts of sexual assault of a child and sentenced to life in prison. Warren Jeffs now resides at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. His inmate number is 017260705, and he will be eligible for parole in July 22nd, 2038. I think everybody just needs to wait outside and throw eggs at him when he comes out. And now, we're going to get into my literal favorite high-control cult group fucking dumpster fire. NXIVM. For some reason, this shit has a chokehold on me. I fucking love reading about this crazy-ass motherfucker. So NXIVM is the name commonly used to describe the personality cult of imprisoned racketeer and sex offender Keith Raniere. NXIVM is also the trademarked name of the defunct corporation that Raniere founded, which provided seminars and videos in the field of human potential development. The United States seized ownership of NXIVM-related entities and their intellectual property through asset forfeiture following Raniere's conviction. The NXIVM Corporation was based in the New York Capital District and had centers throughout the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The subsidiary companies of NXIVM recruited based on the multi-level marketing model and used curricula based on the intellectual property of Raniere called Rational Inquiry. Courses attracted a variety of notable students, including actors as well as the children of the rich and the powerful. At its height, NXIVM had 700 active members. Over its existence, former members and families of NXIVM clients, alarmed by Raniere's behavior and NXIVM's practices, spoke to investigative journalists of Forbes, Vanity Fair, the New York Observer, and the Times-Union of Albany, calling the organization a cult. The organization was criticized in similar terms by Rick Allen Ross of the Cult Education Institute and activists and academics from the anti-cult movement. In 2017, former members Sarah Edmondson, Bonnie Piesi, and Mark Vicente, as well as Catherine Oxenberg, mother of member India Oxenberg, spoke to the New York Times and revealed grave concerns about Keith Raniere and NXIVM, including the existence of a secret society called DOS, in which women were branded, made to record false confessions, and provide nude photography for blackmail. Following the New York Times expose, the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York investigated the organization and in 2008 brought criminal charges against Raniere, co-founder Nancy Salzman, and her daughter Lauren, against actress Allison Mack, Seagram heiress Claire Bronfman, and bookkeeper Kathy Russell. The U.S. Attorney's Office argued in its Racketeer Influence and Corporate Organizations Act prosecution that NXIVM and its subsidiaries existed to promote, enhance, and protect Raniere and members of its enterprise. The indictment alleges that Raniere and his co-defendants comprised an organized racketeering enterprise by recruiting others into NXIVM and DOS for financial and personal benefits and committed crimes ranging from sex trafficking to forced labor and visa and wire fraud. All defendants except for Raniere pled guilty. Raniere chose to go to trial in 2019. Prosecutors revealed a decades-long pattern of grooming, sexual abuse of girls and women, physical and psychological punishments against dissenters, and hacking and vexatious litigation against enemies. Raniere was convicted on the top charge of racketeering and racketeering conspiracy, as well as several other charges. Judge Nicholas Garofis sentenced Raniere to 120 years imprisonment. Co-conspirators Claire Bronfman, Nancy Salzman, and Allison Mack were given lesser prison sentences, and Lauren Salzman and Kathy Russell were each given non-prison sentences. Following Raniere's conviction, he continues to direct a small set of loyal members from his prison cell, encouraging continued recruitment. At his direction, members of the group danced outside Raniere's jail and staged protests against individual prosecutors. Based on statements of support, it was estimated that about 50 to 60 people still remain loyal to Raniere. Before founding NXIVM, Raniere created Consumers Byline, which I know a lot of people have heard of, but they do not realize that Keith Raniere is the person who's fucking behind Consumers Byline. It was a business venture that the New York Attorney General accused of having a pyramid scheme. Raniere signed a consent order in 1996 in which he denied any wrongdoing but agreed to pay a $40,000 fine and be permanently banned from promoting, offering, or granting participation in a chain distribution scheme. In 1998, Raniere and Nancy Salzman founded NXIVM, a personal development company offering executive success programs, or ESP. They talk about ESP a lot. If you read about NXIVM, they always talk about ESP, and a range of techniques for self-improvement. Raniere claimed that its main emphasis is to have people experience more joy in their lives, which if you watch anything having to do with anything that they do, that none of them are happy. Like, anytime they're happy, it's when he says, "Aren't you happy about that?" And they're like, "Yes, I'm so happy." When actually they just look miserable and confused most of the time. It's so confusing. Raniere claimed that its main emphasis is to have people experience more joy in their lives, like I said anyway. In one account cited by former NXIVM member Sarah Edmondson, Raniere chose the name based on the ancient Roman system of debt bondage known as nexum. The 2002 registration with the United States Patent and Trademark Office for the NXIVM trademark states that the foreign wording in the mark translates into English as the next millennium. During NXIVM seminars, students would call Raniere and Salzman Vanguard and Prefect, respectively. The Hollywood Reporter wrote that Raniere adopted the title from the 1981 video game Vanguard, in which the destruction of one's enemies increased one's own power. Within the organization, the reasoning for the title was that Raniere was the leader of the philosophical movement and Salzman was his first student. By 2003, 3,700 people had taken part in ESP classes. Reported participants included businesswoman Sheila Johnson, former Surgeon General Antonia Novella, Enron executive Stephen Cooper, Anna Cristina Fox, daughter of former Mexican President Vicente Fox, entrepreneur Richard Branson, who denied having taken the classes, businessman Edgar Bronfman Sr., and actresses Linda Evans, Grace Park, and Nikki Klein. In the early 2000s, Seagram heiresses Claire and Sarah Bronfman, daughters of Edgar Bronfman Sr., became attached to the organization. Nixium claimed its training is trade secret, subject to non-disclosure agreements, but reportedly uses a technique the organization calls rational inquiry to facilitate personal and professional development. In 2003, Nixium sued the Ross Institute in the case known as Nixium Corp versus Ross Institute, alleging copyright infringement for publishing excerpts of content from its manual in 3 critical articles commissioned by cult investigator Rick Allen Ross, and posted on his website. Ross posted a psychiatrist's assessment of Nixium's secret manual on his website that called the regimen expensive brainwashing. Ross obtained the manual from former member Stephanie Franco, a co-defendant in the trial, who had signed an NDA not to divulge information from the manual to others. Nixium filed suits in New York and New Jersey, but both were dismissed. On appeal, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit affirmed the dismissal, ruling that the defendant's critical analysis of material obtained in bad faith, i.e. in violation of NDA, was fair use since the secondary use was transformative as criticism and was not a potential replacement for the original on the market. In October of 2003, Forbes published a critical article on Nixium and Raniere. According to Vanity Fair, Nixium leadership who had spoken to Forbes had expected a positive story. They were especially upset by remarks made by Bronfman, who told Forbes that he believed Nixium was a cult and that he was troubled by his daughter's emotional and financial investment in it. In 2006, Forbes published an article about the Bronfman sisters, stating that they had taken out a line of credit to loan Nixium $2 million, repayable through personal training sessions and phone consultations with Salzman. Another Forbes article in 2010 discussed the failures of commodities and real estate deals by the Bronfmans made on Raniere's advice. After actresses Kristen Kruick became involved with Nixium in 2006, Salzman and her daughter Lauren, a junior Nixium leader, went to Vancouver to recruit Kruick's Smallville co-star Allison Mack. Lauren bonded with Mack. The two women eventually became Raniere's inner circle and his sexual partners. Kruick, however, left Nixium in 2013. Mack became an enthusiastic proselytizer for Nixium, persuading her parents to take courses, and after wrapping production of Smallville in 2011, she moved to Clifton Park, New York to be near Nixium's home base in Albany. In 2008, the Bronfman sisters allegedly pressured Stephen Hurwitz, a confidant of their father, to ask Albany County District Attorney David Soros, New York Governor Eliot Spitzer, and New Jersey Attorney General Ann Milgram, I was waiting for it to be another guy, and it was a lady, to begin criminal investigations into Nixium's critics. Nixium reportedly kept dossiers on Soros, Spitzer, political consultants Roger Stone and Stephen Pidgeon, U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer, and Albany Times Union publisher George Randolph Hearst III in a box in the basement of Nancy Salzman's home. According to the Times Union, Nixium developed a reputation for aggressively pursuing critics and defectors who broke from its ranks, including using litigation to punish critics of Raniere, the organization, or its training methods. Now, what's really funny is that, to me, if anybody ever says that something isn't a cult, ask them what happens to people who leave that group. And if it's something like this, or if people speak negatively about the group and they fucking go on the defensive and then the offensive where they start attacking people, that's a cult. Like, Scientology is big for that. Anyone who talks negatively about them is called a suppressive person, which that's my... Like, Nixium and Scientology are tied for being my number one, like, most obsessed with cult groups. I could do an entire episode on both of them. I just wanted to include this. Scientology, I could do a long series on Scientology and why it's fucking horrible and like the worst group to ever exist ever. But there's just not enough time. I'm already at like 40 some odd minutes. So, the World Ethical Foundation Consortium, an organization co-founded by Raniere and the Bronfman sisters, sponsored a visit to Albany by the Dalai Lama in 2009. The visit was initially canceled by the Dalai Lama owing to negative press about Nixium, but was rescheduled. The Dalai Lama spoke at Albany's Palace Theater in May 2009. In 2017, Lama Tenzin Dondan, a self-styled personal emissary for peace for the Dalai Lama, who had arranged the appearance, was suspended from his position amid corruption charges. The investigation also revealed a personal relationship between Dondan and Sarah Bronfman, which began in 2009. Now, he would say, oh, the Dalai Lama came to visit me. They paid him. They paid the Dalai Lama to come. It cost them money to have him come and sit and take pictures with them. And then they lied to everybody and told everybody that he he came to visit them on his own, and he wanted to, and he was just so astounded by Keith's genius, which we'll get into it in a second. I have a whole list of things that he claims about himself, and that's my favorite part about him, is all the things that he claims about himself. So NXIVM has been described as a pyramid scheme, a sex trafficking operation, a cult, and a sex cult. In a 2010 Times Union article, former NXIVM coaches characterized students as prey for Ranieri's sexual or gambling-related proclivities. Kristen Keefe, a longtime partner of Ranieri and mother of his child, left the group in 2014 and called Ranieri dangerous, saying all the worst things you know about NXIVM are true. In 2014, Ranieri founded the NXIVM-affiliated news organization The Knife of Aristotle, later known as The Knife and The Knife Media. The Knife of Aristotle was subsequently described as a fake news website and a cult. The organization also reportedly hired journalists in an attempt to gain media support and solicit new members to NXIVM, as well as fabricating staff members. Starting with reports by Frank Peralta in June 2017 and bolstered by an October 2017 article in the New York Times, details began to emerge about Dominus Obsequis Sororium, which was DOS, a secret society of women that started in 2015 within NXIVM, in which female members were allegedly called slaves, branded with the initials of Ranieri and Allison Mack, subjected to corporal punishment from their masters, and required to provide nude photos or other potentially damaging information about themselves as collateral, which was literally just so they could blackmail them into continuing to be their slaves. Law enforcement representatives have alleged that DOS members were forced into sexual slavery, like I just said. Sarah Edmondson, a Canadian actress who had been an ESP participant since 2005, said that she left NXIVM after Mack inducted her into DOS the previous March at her Albany home. Edmondson alleged that participants were blindfolded naked, held down by Mack and 3 other women, and branded by NXIVM-affiliated Dr. Danielle Roberts using a cauterizing pen. Appearing on an A&E television program about cults, Edmondson provided additional context for the use of the collateral concept, saying that it was used in innocuous forms from the earliest, outermost stages of NXIVM in order to acclimate victims. For example, collateralizing small amounts of money that one might forfeit if one did not go to the gym for one day. The New York Times later reported that hundreds of members left NXIVM after Edmondson went public about her experience. And a big thing, I don't know if it's in here or not, he was huge on controlling the way they looked. Allison Mack developed a very dangerous eating disorder while in the group, and she then passed it on to everyone that she had in DOS. They were only allowed to weigh like 100 pounds, and they would get punished if they didn't eat like nothing, and they would get punished if they didn't run every day. It was really, really scary and sad for them. On December 15th, 2017, the NBC News Magazine 2020 aired an expose including interviews with many former NXIVM adherents, including Edmondson and Catherine Oxenberg, who alleged that her daughter India Oxenberg was in danger from the group. Several former members reported financial and sexual predation by NXIVM leaders. Edmondson further appeared in Escaping NXIVM during the first season of the CBC podcast Uncover. 7 socially prominent Mexican citizens, including Emiliano Salinas, son of former President Carlos Salinas de Gortari, and Ana Cristina Fox, daughter of former President Vicente Fox, Rosa Laura Junco, Loretta Garza Davila, a business leader from Nuevo Leon, and Daniela Padilla, Camilla, and Monica Duran have been accused of involvement. This was when... So he brought this one sister up from Mexico, and then brought her little sister up from Mexico and was abusing both of them. He was really going after the little sister, but he used the big sister to get to her. And I might have butchered most of those names. I was trying really hard. But these are a whole bunch of prominent Mexican citizens that he brought up. 7 of them. And he pretty much let them do whatever they wanted on the compounds that he was staying on. And in March 2018, Ranieri was arrested and indicted on charges related to DOS, including sex trafficking conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit forced labor. He was arrested in Mexico and held in custody in New York after appearing in federal court in Fort Worth, Texas. There is video of him getting arrested, and it's fucking great. The indictment alleged that at least one woman was coerced into sex with Ranieri, who forced DOS members to undergo the branding ritual alleged by Edmondson and others. United States Attorney Richard Donahue stated that Ranieri created a secret society of women whom he had sex with and branded with his initials, coercing them with the threat of releasing their highly personal information and taking their assets. On 4/20 of 2018, Allison Mack was arrested and indicted on similar charges to Ranieri's. According to prosecutors, after she recruited women into first Nixium and then DOS, Mac coerced them into engaging in sexual activity with Raniere and performing menial tasks for which Raniere allegedly paid her. Mac was further alleged to be a DOS second in command after Raniere. On April 24th, Mac was released on $5 million bond pending trial and held under house arrest with her parents in California. On May 4th, Raniere pleaded not guilty. The assets of Nixium were held by Nancy Salzman, including several corporate entities and titles to intellectual property. As part of her plea agreement with the government, Salzman did not contest asset forfeiture. She was following the conviction of Keith Raniere. Members of the defunct organization split, with many speaking out against Raniere and the organization. A small number of Nixium members continue to support Raniere and protest his innocence. Attorneys for Raniere submitted letters from 56 supporters requesting leniency for him. In January 2020, Sarah Evanson became lead plaintiff in a racketeer influenced in Corporate Organizations Act civil suit filed in United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York, accusing Raniere and 14 associates, including Nancy Salzman, Claire Bronfman, Sarah Bronfman, Laura Salzman, Alsa Mack, Kathy Russell, Karen Unterrenier, that's weird, Brandon Porter, Danielle Roberts, and Nikki Klein, of conducting illegal psychological experiments on members of the company and abusing them physically, emotionally, and financially. All right, here's everything that Keith Raniere claimed about himself. It's a long list. So over the decades, Nixium emphasized Raniere's specialness through hagiography. Okay, right? A complaint from a 2020 lawsuit by former Nixium members recapitulated several fantastical claims made in marketing materials about Raniere. These claims, the complaint states, were all false. He says that he was a child prodigy capable of speaking in complete sentences by the age of 1 year old. He says he has a genius intellect in grade school where he mastered college-level mathematics. He was an elite athlete who won judo and track tournaments. And if you watch Escaping Nixium, all they do is play volleyball. All they ever do is play volleyball. It's like sacred to them to play volleyball, and it's fucking hilarious. Like, I just can't, like, I have too big of an ego. I could never just, like, blindly be like, oh my god, you're the greatest person ever. You sweaty, gross old man. Ugh. He was so gross looking, too. They said he had a genius intellect and, every August, Nixium members would gather in Silver Bay, New York to celebrate Raniere's birthday known as Vanguard Week, which began as a single day and eventually expanded to 11 days. The event included tribute ceremonies to Raniere by Nixium members, as established by prosecutors according to several sources, including former high-ranking members of Nixium. Raniere's word is final within Nixium, and nothing of importance happens within Nixium without Raniere's approval. Nixium members are taught that Raniere is the smartest and most ethical man in the world. Raniere frequently cited having earned 3 degrees from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. A review of his transcript shows that he actually graduated with a 2.26 GPA, having failed or barely passed many of the upper-level math and science classes he was bragging about taking. Well before co-founding Nixium, Keith Raniere made fantastical claims about his intelligence. In June 1988, the Times-Union profiled Raniere reporting on the membership in the Mega Society after he achieved a high score on founder Ronald K. Hoffman's Mega Test, an unsupervised 48-question test published in the April 1985 issue of Omni magazine. Although the Mega Test has been widely criticized as not having been properly validated, the 1989 edition of the Guinness Book of World Records, the last edition to include the category for the highest IQ, because IQ is subjective, it doesn't mean that you're smart or not, it's just never mind, described the Hoffman Research Group as the most exclusive, ultra-high IQ society. And the 1989 Australian edition identified Raniere, Marilyn Voss Savant, and Eric Hart as the highest-scoring members of the group. In 2003, Forbes' expose of Nixium and Raniere showed that Raniere continued to make the claim of being the world's most intelligent man, with the addition of being the most ethical. By the time of 2012, the Times-Union article, these claims had extended to Raniere convincing some of Nixium that his intellectual energy sets off radar detectors. He's fucking so... the fuck? At Raniere's trial, testimony revealed that Raniere had convinced several girls and women that sex with him could heal their At Ranieri's trial, testimony revealed that Ranieri had convinced several girls and women that sex with him could heal their purported disintegrations. It's hard to even read some of the shit that he says because it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, he had to sit in his room and repeat this stuff just to be able to say it. And that his semen had supernatural qualities. It's so hard to read this. Ranieri instructed one sexual partner to seek out a virgin because he needed a pure vessel for reasons energy-related and DNA-wise. You guys, I hate him so much. That's why I'm, so obsessed with it, because I want to talk about it all the time. I want everyone to know how disgusting and weird and creepy he is. And, I'm sorry. I don't even trust myself. I don't trust anybody. If some fucking guy was not now, obviously, I'm married, I don't trust anyone but my husband. But, some guy was I'm the smartest man in the world. I would be like, no, you're not. You're not. Sorry. No. No one is the smartest anyone in the world. Intelligence is subjective. I don't like when people tell me that you can't measure intelligence. Either someone is intelligent or they're not. It's really hard to measure your level of intelligence. I don't want to hear about the IQ test. IQ test is not a measure of how intelligent you are. It's actually a measure of your problem-solving skills and how creative you are. How do I know? Because I've taken so many. Because I was in all the gifted fucking programs. Because I'm fucking autistic. And because I like taking tests. I almost want to say out-of-pocket shit on here just so people will engage. That was the end. That's the end of it. I'm going to go try to edit this fucking dumpster fire of an episode. I found out that I have listeners in other countries. Here's where I have listeners. Canada, Australia, Germany, South Africa, Puerto Rico, Vietnam, Denmark. My grandpa would love to know this. So, that's the episode. You can find me on all my socials. You can also find me at my website, which I will link in the show notes. You can contact me via email at hb3pod@gmail.com. If you like what you're hearing, please follow or subscribe and rate or review on whichever streaming platform you're listening on. It helps me so fucking much. Also, my show isn't sponsored by anyone, but I do have affiliates and would love if you check them all out. All proceeds gained through affiliates is put right back into producing and editing the show, as well as paying web hosting fees. So I decided that my last episode of this, my season finale, we're going to end when the kids' school year ends, which is May 30th. My season finale is going to be a Peter Pan analysis. Just hear me out. They're coming out with a new one. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Matilda. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to watch them and record voice notes while I'm watching them. And then use those in the episode, but we're going to do a pan-analysis. We're going to just compare and contrast them all. I'll probably do different categories and talk about how they all approached them differently. I'll do Peter, Wendy, Tink, Hook, Lost Boys, I'll do all the aspects and how each version approached it. It'll probably be a 2 fucking hour long episode or some shit. I didn't even think this one was going to be an hour long, but then I looked at my notes and I was like, yeah, bitch, you have a lot on there because you just copy pasted a bunch of shit because FYI, I am now a press on girly. You probably can't hear it, but I'm a press on girly now, so it's really hard to type. And I got this new keyboard thinking it would make it easier to type, but then I decided I liked press ons a lot. And it's really hard to type with press-ons, regardless of what keyboard you're using. And copy-paste works really well, especially when you're just, taking facts and putting facts in other places. So, I'm going to go make dinner for my kids now. Okay? Love you. Thank you. Bye.
You dumb fucking bitch.
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 You bitch! The mega bitch!
Heinous bitch is the
Fucking bitch.
Bitch?
You're a bitch!
The bitch.
If you've ever thought about making your own podcast, I highly recommend using Buzzsprout. You can find a link in the show notes. And once you're there, they kind of explain everything for you. And it's really pretty cheap, honestly. They give you all kinds of tips and tools on how to increase listeners, how to promote your show, and on monetization. If you have any other questions, they are super responsive. They get back to you within a day, if not an hour. I use Buzzsprout, and it gives me the ability to host my podcast on basically every single podcast hosting site and app. It's great. I love them. So I'm going to continue to use them. And if you're interested, you should definitely look into them. Like I said, there's a link in the show notes.